Oh, sorry. Welcome back to UFC Round-Up, where me and Michael Chiesa chop the air, show our dance moves, and we talk about fighting. We had a crazy weekend. 274 just happened. Lots of stuff went down. Weights were missed. There's controversy with the scale, Michael. We got so much stuff that we have to get through. Let's start right up the top with the main event. Charles Oliveira is not the champ, even though he should be this past weekend. Let's get right into that, right?
Paul, I was going to say, you were very passionate about this subject on Twitter. So, look, Paul, take the floor. Yeah. Let hell hath no fury. Let's hear it. I want to hear your take on this.
I have calmed down since having posted the stories and tweeted the tweets and battled the trolls out there of the people who are clearly having better lives than me based on the comments that they throw at me. But so when I first posted about this, when we first talked about it, my mind was blown. This guy is a guy that used to fight at featherweight. He's been diligent about making 155. It hasn't even been an issue. So for him to come in a half a pound over what we thought was a half a pound, this is before all the skeptics and the scale stuff and other people having trouble with being told they were on weight and they weren't. Okay. I maybe was a little harsh on Charles, having not known all of those facts. However, I do not change my stance on the fact that you should be prepared. You should have hired a team that is prepared to do things on the fly. You should never trust anything or anything anybody tells you, especially when there's different commissions using a meat scale, right? Where they're actually going to be able to do this on the scale, because me and you both know, Michael, sometimes you'll be 3-4 ounces over. The guy that does this on the scale lets it go most of the time. Some guys are sticklers. You got to be prepared to be on the dot or under, in my opinion, if you're a champion. 154.8 should be your goal if you're trying to weigh in at 155.0 when the belt is on the line and millions of dollars are on the line. I should have said something more along the lines of, I think it was very foolish of Charles Oliveira to have missed weight for that. And I think it's unfortunate for the division. Still, everybody's getting on me about, oh, well, Justin still gets the fight for the belt, but it just muddies the waters yet again for the 155 pounders. And it's a shame for Charles, who, by the way, guys, if you remember, I picked to win. I love this athlete. I think he's fantastic. I don't care that we fought. I don't care about any of that crap. It sucks that he missed weight, and it sucks for him, because now he missed out on, well, I think he got his pay-per-view points, so good for him for that. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the whole thing, Mike? I know you've struggled, over the years to hit that mark on the scale. We all have, but what do you think happened? And how much of that should he been prepared to deal with in the moment, or was it partially the commission's fault here?
So for me, Paul, when I go back and watch the UFC embeddeds, I kind of had the inclination that maybe Charles was pretty big, because to me, when I see an athlete wearing plastics early on in fight week for their workouts, I know some guys like to do that, but for me, it just kind of, especially for a guy like Charles, it kind of raises a red flag for me. Like, hey, is he maybe having a tough cut? It's just, for me, especially, Paul, as you know, when you hire a team, when you really have your nutrition and your weight cut under control, the plastics is like the last resort. You don't want to stress the body. It's like, you want to just have normal workouts. You want to get a normal sweat, maybe sit in the portable sauna just a little bit after you work out, but you don't want to be putting your body through that kind of stress for a week straight. And then you see him on the scale, and he looked very drawn out. Yeah, he looked very, very much like he was having a very tough weight cut. And I know that there's all the controversy about the certified scale and this and that, but it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you don't want to put the blame onto someone else. It's best for you to just accept fault and move on, and then let the cards fall as they lie. When everybody else comes out and says, hey, I was having trouble with that scale as well, then they fix it going down the road. But I'm with you, Paul. It's one of those things where you're the champ. You have more resources than a lot of people. You have the funds and the finances to be able to pay an Ian Larios or a Lockhart and Lee, or even just hire the UFC PI and work with them remotely. Then you could do that for free. So he's got to take accountability for it. And, it's just unfortunate, as you said as well, for the division. Like, now there is no champion. Now it's just kind of like, and also, how does Justin Gaethje feel? How does Justin Gaethje feel, especially having lost that fight? Like, you lost to a guy that missed weight. Granted, it's like everyone's going to say, oh, it's only by a half pound. Well, Charles would have had to bust his butt to lose that half pound, judging by how, not saying this to sound rude, but he looked like a piece of Brazilian beef jerky. He looked pretty drawn out, dude. But it's just
he always kind of does anyway.
It's just unfortunate for the division. It's unfortunate for Justin, but more than anybody, it's unfortunate for Charles, because now you're not the champion. And granted, maybe you did get your pay-per-view points for this fight. You're not going to get him next fight because you're not the champ.
No.
So
yeah,
it's just, it really just kind of muddies the water across the board for just kind of everybody that's jockeying for a position with that title.
Yeah, and that was kind of my point. And I was upset. And this is a division I care a lot about. Obviously, me and you have participated in for a long time. And, it's my favorite division to watch. And I like it that, I like that we had this champion that looked like he was going to be on a tear. I mean, we lost Khabib, and then in steps Charles, who looks like he's going to show us some consistency, who's breaking records after records. And that being said, I want to turn it away from the negativity of the situation, because it was a close miss. It sucks, but it is what it is. And he kept that winning streak going. So more importantly, he sets himself up to go right back and fight for it again. But that performance, I mean, he really has just changed who he is as a fighter. The guy's been on a tear. I think that's his 11th fight in a row. He's finishing people left and right. And we all just talk the jiu-jitsu over and over again. And Michael Chandler even said, shame on all of us for not being more positive on this guy's stand-up. His chin, now, you talk about calling him a quitter. I feel like all that talk of saying that he's a quitter that he's heard over the last few years has made this guy an absolute animal out there, bro. He's being dropped in his last few fights. He sits there, he plays guard for a second, and he's got such a dangerous guard that people don't even want to go to the ground and try to finish him. That's a dangerous fighter that even when you hurt him and knock him to the canvas, you're like, no.
Yeah, it's like what Luke Thomas said. It's like he's found a way to give himself a 10 count. Like, it's like you drop the guy and he drops to his back, and it's like, you're like, hell no, I'm not going down there. Like, I think Luke Thomas said it. I got to give credit where it's due. But yeah, like you said, you drop the guy and he just goes to his back and looks at you like, all right, come on, to follow up and you want to try to finish me? Come on down, Come
on down. Yeah, come on down. Open invite. I mean, he sits there, hands on the back of the head.
He really does. He really does. Just kind of put his hands on his back and looks at you like, dude, he's getting a tan or something.
And he's just, I think the weight miss also, even though, again, guys, we're not going to harp on this, but I think it's shown that he's settled into this weight class. He's getting older now. I think the 145 days are over. I even made a bad comment on that. Like, is he still thinking about making 145?
Well, he better not be freaking saying it now. If he says one thing in the media about wanting to go 45, he can do it if he's wanting to be funny, because it would be funny. But if he says it with conviction, I think you might explode.
No, yeah, he's never going back down to featherweight. But we got to talk. He beats Justin with ease, gets hurt a little bit. But most of it on the feet, knocks him down, was merciful. Could have probably followed up with more shots right there and finished it, but wanted to be Charles Oliveira about it. Slips around to the back beautifully like he always does. Takes that choke, fights it off one time, readjusts it, boom, lights out, even though he tapped. But what's next? Obviously, he's the number one contender. He's fighting for the belt, but who's on the other side of the cage?
For me, I think that as much as everyone's clamoring for Islam, and I think that if you had to pick somebody right now, I think that would be the guy. But with Charles saying he doesn't want to fight till December, I say we go through with the Beneil Dariush, Islam Makhachev fight. I think Beneil deserves it as well. We got to think about the other side of that matchup. Beneil's on a tear himself, and it wasn't his fault that he had to withdraw from that number one contender fight. He had the ankle injury, and it was pretty severe. So with Charles not wanting to fight till December, I say we make that fight happen, and whoever comes out of that fight is the winner. I say that's the guy that fights for the title next. But could you imagine if he did fight Islam? And could you imagine if he went out there and put it on Islam? Could that be the thing? And I hate even saying it, because I know we're trying to get over the idea of Khabib Nurmagomedov coming back into the octagon. But could you just imagine if he beats Islam? Then it's like, is that enough? Is that enough to bring back the eagle? Like, God, one can only salivate. But at the end of the day, my choice would be let Islam and Beneil fight, and whoever wins that is the number one contender and fights Charles Oliveira in December.
Yeah, I like that. But there's also, Conor is the wild card, right? He's the wild card and everything. And I'm not saying that this is what should happen, but this is always on the table depending on what Conor decides he wants to do. His name got tossed around a whole lot on Saturday night and then in the ensuing days since the event. And now things are getting interesting, right? Chandler's calling him out. Chandler wins another fight. I don't think he fits back into that title shot yet. I agree that it probably should be Islam. And if it's not, and Charles does want to wait, that makes sense. But maybe Conor comes back, does want to jump in there and steal everybody's money and jump in front of the line. But if he does, Charlie Olives is going to want it, right? I mean, that's red panty night written all over it.
Who doesn't want the money fight? Who doesn't want the money fight?
So I say, let's say Islam and Beneil fight, but he doesn't want to wait around, and old Mr. McGregor comes slipping in, and that's a matchup that I think, well, as much as I hate it because it isn't what should be happening, it's interesting.
I'm tuning in. I'm buying that pay-per-view.
I'm paying for it. Well, you know, I don't know if I'm
actually,
paying.
I'm not paying.
You're paying. Somebody's paying.
I don't pay for pay-per-views anymore. But just
right. Well,
if I had to, I would. Yeah, look at us.
Come on.
Free pay-per-views.
We're on UFC Round-Up. We're at UFC Round-Up.
Perk for the job. It's part of our benefit.
I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt in my basement on a Tuesday. Living my best life. But yeah, so I think those are the best matchups. And we got to say real quick, let's talk about what the hell, what do you do with Justin Gaethje now?
Oh man, you know, it's that's a tough thing to think about. I think the Poirier rematch is there. There's a lot of meat on that bone. That was a great fight. And obviously when it comes to Justin Gaethje, you're only going to put him in there with the blue chip lightweights. Like you're not going to Justin Gaethje's not the guy that you're going to give an up and coming guy a shot to get one over on him to get to the title. Like you pay big money for Justin Gaethje, you put him in big money fights, you put him in big fights. So I mean, the only guy that really stands out to me off the top of my head would be Dustin Poirier. Or on the other side of it, there is a storyline with him and Conor. So I think that, especially both of them, you know, coming off a loss, I think that's a fight that would make sense as well.
And it's a fight
you can only do big fights with Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, and it's a fight that makes sense, I think, for Conor, right? If you're thinking about Conor wanting to come back, wants to make a statement, wants to have a big knockout type performance, you want somebody that just can't help themselves but stand in front of you. Charles will do that to a point. Chandler will even do that only to a point, right? He's smart too. He knows when to shoot a shot, but Gaethje, man, he can't freaking help himself. He wants to just throw hands and kicks. Even though he's such good wrestling, sneaky in that back pocket, he just doesn't seem to want to use it in these fights, especially when you're matched up with Charles Oliveira. That's a tough one. But that wasn't the only title fight. Both these ladies in the co-main event obviously made weight, and this fight's getting a lot of news and not necessarily for the reasons as a fighter that you would ever want. People are saying it's a snooze fest. And you know, and then Rose is saying she won the fight. She's adamant that she won the fight. But I mean, you watch that fight, you listen to the commentary, and you can't be upset at the end of the day when you have a fight from both women like that. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen, but guys, I mean, that was not a fun fight to watch, Michael.
No, you know, and it's, as a fan, it was tough to watch. And, you know, I got to admit, and I don't want to be hard on anyone's case. This is a lot different from the Charles Oliveira situation where there's place to kind of put some heat on him a little bit. But I got to give these girls a little bit of slack because it is tough to be in there in the octagon. Sometimes you can get timid, but as a fighter, it was very hard to watch. And for me, you know, I think that there's this expectation of Rose Namajunas where you just see what she's done to Wei Lee. You see the way she knocked out Joanna. Like, I think that she has set a standard for herself, and the fans have set a standard for her where she just puts on exciting fights. And more often than not, when she has an exciting fight, she's the one getting her hand raised and having these really emphatic finishes. But I just feel like she was a little gun shy. And to me, Paul, there's got to be something done with the way they score these rounds, because I don't feel like Rose got robbed by any means. I don't really feel like there was a winner this fight. I feel like that there was, like, the first round, that should have been a 10-10 round. And if you look at the scorecards, just looking down here, 47-48 for Rose, 48-47 for Carla. You do a 10-10 round, we have a tie, we have a draw. And I know we don't like seeing that in the UFC, but it's almost like, I feel like that would almost be a better result for there to be a draw. Let these ladies go hit the drawing board, deal with the heat, and then come back and try to do it again and do it the way that should be done. You got to get out there and fight. You got to get out there and really pursue the win, even if you have to take chances. And for Rose, and this is no disrespect to Carla, I don't see why she was afraid to take chances. I mean, you're doing so well at getting up off the ground. I'm surprised she wasn't throwing more offense up the middle, more snap kicks, more uppercuts, more things to try to catch Carla coming in on that low level shot. But it was Carla that kind of took more of the risks to try to get the takedown. So I just feel like this fight really left a bad taste in my mouth. And I think that if they scored some 10-10 rounds, I think that, it's kind of a catch-22. Yeah, we don't want to see a draw, but it's like there's no winner, and it doesn't feel like anybody won that fight, even though Carla has the title.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying. I was saying that, who won this fight? I don't mean to be completely disrespectful, but really nobody, right? I mean, neither one of them did. Nobody watching it. There wasn't much action happening. And I know that Rose said some things like, and she's right, that not every fight do you have to go out there and lay your face on the line and put your health on the line. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is professional fighting that we're watching, right? So whether it's super exciting, a tactical matchup, or a slower fight, you still have to try to score points in order to win a match. I mean, it is a sport at the end of the day. That's like a team going out and not scoring any goals and being like, well, we won. And it's like, well, you both played the game, but nobody scored any points. So really nobody won the game. It's definitely like a soccer game that just nobody really scored. It's not like you didn't try to score at times, but both teams just nullified each other. And yeah, I think that's one case where you just say, all right, it was a draw. Nobody really did enough to, in my opinion, take that win bonus away.
And the other thing too is, Rose did say something about like how defense can win fights as well. Well, when I hear that statement, which is true, I think of Floyd Mayweather. I think of Floyd Mayweather, how many fights he won off defense, but his defense looks so good because he got his offense going and found his opportunities to pull back, use his defense, slip punches. And that's when defense can win fights. When you're using offense to draw their offense out and you're scoring and you're able to pull back, slip their punches, use defense. And we could go on and on about Rose, but we got to give a little credit to Carla because she won the title back. She holds the record now for longest amount of time between title reigns. She's getting married this Saturday. This is a big risk to take. I mean, I myself was like, hey, I'm getting married this Saturday. I'm not fighting until after my wedding. I don't think Kelsey Joe wants to be waltzing in there with a big old shiner, a cut, maybe a sling and a cast. Who knows? But good on Carla to break a record in its own right, to longest time between title reigns, gets the belt back. She's getting married. And the other bonus to this, Paul, is I feel like this opens up a lot more opportunities for the strawweight division because if Rose goes home with the title, Rose has fought Weili twice. She's fought Joanna twice. She's fought Carla twice. She's kind of in that position where she's really burning through contenders. And we haven't had other females break into that upper echelon of the division to be an outright contender. So now you got Carla as the champ. You got Weili and Joanna fighting. I think whoever wins that fight could come out and fight her next. I think it just opens up a little more movement. So there is a benefit to Carla Esparza going home with the title.
I agree. And that is the silver lining in this, right? Where it does open up different rematches. And now we got to think about who does she fight to get herself right back into the mix? Because I don't think a rematch makes any sense. Like we talked about, it's like, all right, you guys already fought twice. It's 1-1. I think that's a fight down the road that you can get back to. And I'm sure that if it did happen down the road, that it would be a much different matchup because now they both have that bad taste in their mouth. They both have been ridiculed for maybe being a little bit inactive and not really putting on a stellar performance. So you'd think the next time they get down the line and fight, whether it be for the belt or not, or maybe to get to the belt, because they're both top contenders. And I feel like they're both either going to be right with the belt or fighting for it. So I think that's a fight we're going to see, but we're seeing.
I forgot one person. And if I don't chime in and forget, I'm going to get freaking laced up by the fans. Jessica Andrade.
Yeah.
I mean, she just had that phenomenal win over Amanda Lemos.
Absolutely.
So there's another contender waiting in the wings. Another person that Rose has fought twice already, but another great
like five or six athletes that are just going like this, right? So hopefully we'll get some fresh blood in that division soon. And I'm sure there is. Off the top of my head, of course, I'm gonna pull the same thing as you and blank. But anyway, we got to move on because we got so much stuff to talk about. We've got one of the craziest knockouts that I've ever seen. I'm in Disney, right? Let me set this up for you, Michael. I'm in Disney My daughter's over here sleeping. Christine's next to me. We decided I got it hooked up through my Fight Pass onto the TV in the hotel. We're watching it. I'm drinking a couple beers and I'm starting to like get tired. It's been a long day of walking around all over the parks. And it was one of those things when that knockout happened, it was so freaking crazy that have you ever seen something so wild that you almost don't react because you can't believe what you just saw? I was laying there with like a beer, just chilling next to her watch. And I was just like, we both just looked at each other and went, oh my God. Like, is he okay? Do you know what I mean? I almost got immediately concerned for Tony in that situation. It was so vicious and fast. I mean, it was snap, boom, and he's face planting off the canvas. And you saw, well, look at that.
My gosh.
And everybody's seen the other photos. We just want to make sure that we're getting in-house photos up here. Crazy, bro. You got to give it to
Chandler. Pat McAfee, dude. That's the Pat McAfee. He freaking kicked that thing right up the middle.
Right up the middle. But you know, it was actually perfectly landed. So I want to give a shout out to Chandler on being able to chamber the ball of the foot back of your front kick. And I mean, all ball of the foot right on Tony's jaw, just like Dana and everybody. I mean, the most perfect front kick, just like Anderson Silva, but almost more brutal because his had more of a snap, like a Taekwondo karate kick.
And he followed up. Anderson followed up too. He dropped Vitor and followed up.
That's true.
He sparked Tony. And dude, we got to give a little credit to Tony. He looked good that first round. I'm thinking, holy crap, El Cucuy's back. He's about to put on this.
Yeah.
He looked so good. And it's just Chandler, and he even said it himself. Chandler said, hey, this is a technique. I don't really train it. I just saw the lane, and that shows how good Michael Chandler is because he threw a technique. He doesn't really train because he made a read. He's like, dude, it's right up the middle. He talked about how they were going to go fake shot uppercut. They were going to look to throw the uppercut. And Tony, you could see in the sequence, Tony's hands are down, and he's starting to stalk Chandler, changing stances, kind of walking forward, and he just caught him square, flush on the chin. Like, that's a good read on Michael Chandler, and that just shows the craftiness. I mean, this is a guy that's just known for swinging hammers. I mean, meat hooks, twisting hooks till failure type of guy. And he's like, screw it. I'm just going to throw this kick up the middle because I'm making a read during the fight, in a fight that he was, in my opinion, he was losing. I mean, he was getting pieced up that fight, and boom, snap kick up the middle. I was same as you, Paul. I was at home watching the fights with my buddy Avery, where I'm laying on the floor and he's sitting on the couch, and we both just kind of like look back up at each other like, what just happened?
What
like,
was that?
Usually I'm a guy that's jumping up when it happens. I'm practicing for my day in the commentary booth, and I jump out of the chair and almost fall over. Like, I'm usually doing that. But I was just like, oh man, what just happened? And Tony was out for like a minute. Like he was, you hate to see it, but that's the nature of the beast. And for him to be the first guy to put away Tony, who's historically been an extremely durable fighter, I mean, that's a huge feather in his cap.
That's how you have to do it, right? Tony's one of those guys. You're not just going to land like a stiff jab or a right hand and put him down. You've got to land something like that. A massive front kick up the middle, something just out of left field. And then he did, I think, four backflips after that one? 3 or 4 backflips.
Yeah, Ally Quinta had a funny tweet. He was like, we need to get Chandler back in there. I want to see more backflips. I think he was being kind of a smart ass, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, there was a lot. I was kind of impressed with the energy there.
Yeah. But now what do you do with him? But now let's talk. What do you do with Michael Chandler? I mean, now, I mean, we kind of touched on it before.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say,
I ruined it again.
No, it's hard not to because those two fights are so intertwined. We're talking about who should Michael Chandler face next. And I'm going to say somebody I haven't said because there's something about this matchup that intrigues me. Obviously, Michael Chandler's a blue chip fighter. He's a guy you're only putting him in big fights. At this point going forward, he's a big draw. You're putting him in the big fights. I like the idea of him fighting Nate Diaz. I mean, Nate Diaz, they're looking for a dance partner for Nate. And I think for Nate says that the UFC is keeping him on ice, but it's hard to match Nate because he's such a big superstar. You got to put somebody in there that's of the same magnitude. Now, is Chandler as big of a superstar as Nate Diaz? I don't think so. But to me, that's a fun fight that makes sense. I don't know if anybody would have a qualm with seeing Nate Diaz and Michael Chandler matched up against each other at 170 pounds. I think it's a really interesting fight. I mean, that's just my take. Why not shake things up? Do something different. That's what the UFC does well. Throw a wrench in the gears. Let's give the fans something they didn't expect. Let's go Nate Diaz, Michael Chandler at 170, and screw it. Make it a 5-round fight on a pay-per-view. You know, maybe not a main event, but throw it in there as the co-main or the co-main as a 5-rounder.
I think that they're doing more of that kind of stuff because I think they're realizing that there's a place for it now, that the fans want it. And I agree, that's a fight where you put them in as the featured bout or the co-main event on a pay-per-view, and you can easily make that 5 rounds. And it doesn't matter what weight class it is, right? And I think we're starting to see these kind of fights develop more and more where we just want to see some of the baddest people face each other. We don't really care about what weight class it's at. We don't really care if it's for the title. We want to see a long, full fight in 25 minutes, and we want to see something that's interesting. That's interesting. Conor is also interesting. I think that's actually a really good fight as well. I think Chandler, and he deserves it. You go and pull off a knockout like that, and you bring it the way he does in all of these fights, love him or hate him, you want to see the guy fight, and he kind of now has opened the door for himself to really get a huge fight, no matter who it is. I mean, Dana is going to look at that. The brass is going to look at that, and they're going to say, okay, we need to be showcasing this guy wherever. And I think it's a fight that's winnable for Chandler if he fights either one of those guys. And it doesn't matter if not, Nate's not ranked anywhere. Conor is still ranked, I think, maybe in the top 15 at lightweight somewhere.
He's like 7 or 8.
9.
9.
He's 9. So Michael Chandler gets that win. It doesn't matter. He puts himself right back. Even if it's at 70, now we want to see him potentially fight Charles again, because we saw how that fight went the first time. He goes and wins a couple fights after that. Put him right back in the mix. I mean, the lightweight division, it doesn't matter. If you're fighting guys like Nate or you're fighting guys like Conor, I don't care where they're ranked, it sets you up for a huge fight up the rankings.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And there's another guy we haven't named, Dustin Poirier. And
that's a big one.
That's a big one as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you see these guys matched up. You got Chandler coming in at -155. You got Conor coming in as the dog at +135. I think the odds in that fight make sense. And sometimes I feel like when they start releasing odds, it kind of makes the fight start to gain a little bit of traction. I think that that's a good fight. And obviously Conor's in the driver's seat. Conor's going to pick who he wants to fight next. He's going to dictate that. But yeah, I mean, Dustin Poirier is another guy. I mean, he falls in the same category as Chandler and Gaethje. Like, you can only put him in big fights. And him and Michael Chandler, it doesn't get much bigger than that. I mean, that's a huge fight. That's another fight that I think 5 rounds would do a lot of service, And I think that Poirier is a 5-round fighter. Nate's a 5-round fighter. Is Chandler a 5-round fighter? I think that would be a big challenge for him. But if he does take the fight at 170, I think it would favor him a little bit in terms of his gas tank not having to make that cut to 155 pounds.
Yeah, because you saw in some of those photos before he makes 155, I mean, the dude's got about 3% body fat by the time he gets down to 155. So he could definitely pull off fighting at 170. Trust me, guys. He's got to be probably 189 to 195.
Oh, dude, when you see Chandler in person, like, I worked the desk with him one time, and he weighed about as much as me, and he's about up to my chin. So the guy that dude is stacked. That dude is he's yoked.
He's a beast. And real quick, we got to talk about this coming weekend. Aleksandar Rakic and oh my goodness, Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, excited to see him getting back in the mix. Aleksandar Rakic is a guy that has had all the potential in the world. I think he's just got to go out there and have another one of those performances. And against Jan, if he can go and pull that off, man, especially if he can get a finish, my God, he puts himself right in the driver's seat for wanting some of these big guys at 205 pounds, or maybe even a title shot. And Jan obviously wants to get back in the mix, wants to get another shot at that belt. So very interesting fight this weekend. Michael, anything stand out to you coming?
The thing that stands out to me is the inactivity from Rakic, and I feel like that he's kind of chosen that. I feel like I don't even remember his last fight. I want to say it was Anthony Smith. I feel like I think it was Anthony. I think Anthony Smith was his last fight. I'm sure Ricci will chime in and validate.
Richie, what was his last fight?
Yeah, Ricci, come on, chime in. Don't make me look like a buffoon out here.
Or was it Thiago Santos?
Thiago Santos. See, that alone, he's been very inactive. So I think that that's something that could favor Jan. I seen Jan when I was working my last show on the 30th. He was already in Vegas with his whole team. He's already getting acclimated to the times and the temperatures and the dryness of Las Vegas. So it's a very interesting fight for both guys, especially for Rakic. I mean, if he can go out there and get a big win and get it done in emphatic fashion, I think he could find himself fighting for whoever wins out of Glover and Yuri Prohaska, which will take place in Singapore.
Singapore, baby.
So,
exciting fight.
It's a big fight. It's a big fight. And I mean, maybe it's Ankalaev gets the winner of this. Who knows? But 205 is finally starting to get pretty dicey, man. There's some big fights to be made at light heavyweight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're gonna move on to anything else we're gonna talk. We're gonna bring in some fan questions.
We're going fan questions, and there's some pretty interesting ones.
I know. Sure. Yeah, we only saw a couple. We haven't seen them all. Has there ever been a moment in the octagon where you thought to yourself, I won't win this fight? It's a good question.
I do have one, and it's actually a fight that I won, Paul. When I was on The Ultimate Fighter and I was fighting the quarterfinals against Justin Lawrence, the first round, he took me down, but I threw up a lot of submissions, kind of beat him up from the bottom, but spent the whole round on my back, but really attacked a lot of subs. I had a lot of really close submissions. In my mind, I lost the round. And then the second round, I got dropped with a body shot, almost got TKO'd. And so when I went back, so as that's happening and I'm getting up, I'm like, I'm not going to win this fight. I just lost. And then the judges blessed me with a sudden victory round 3, and I got the TKO win and proceeded to go on and win the Ultimate Fighter. So I have had moments like that where I was like, I'm not going to win this fight. Like the second I got dropped and hit the ground, I'm like, crap, there it goes. I'm done. Yeah. Fight's over.
Yeah. I've definitely thought that in fights. I probably thought that during the Mike Perry fight when my arm was broken and I was just getting hammered with elbows and thrown around, and he was strong and I had no real defense. But I would get little moments of inspiration and land a good shot, so it kept me going. But yeah, I definitely when I felt that in my arm in between rounds, I remember thinking, all right, you got to survive this one. You know what I mean?
I would have liked to see you with a full camp at 70, though. I never got to fully do that. That's a little bit different. And, I actually have another one that I forgot to mention. When I fought Jorge Masvidal, when I got my first pro loss, I definitely had, I was a young guy. I think I was 25. I asked for that fight. Joe Silva's trying to give me much easier matchups, and me thinking, I want the best guy. Give me the toughest guy that's available. He's like, well, I got Masvidal. I was like, that's the guy I want. And I just remember having a moment in round 2 where I was like, dude, I am outgunned. I am outmatched. I had the best first round of my life. I actually dropped somebody, which you know as well as I do historically, that doesn't happen often. And it still didn't get the job done. And so I think round 2, being the young guy and having to deal with that first loss, I definitely was like having a moment like, dude, I'm done. Barbecued, tapped with 1 second left. Still bugs me to this day. But, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, the fans, I definitely had a moment in a fight that I lost.
We all have their moments. UFC Round-Up, what's your best piece of advice for a young amateur? Could be anything from weight cutting, or maybe don't cut, or types of gyms to be at. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And
I'll jump out in front. There's two things for me that stand out. One, work a job on your way up. I've seen too many guys throughout my career that have pursued this sport and did it taking too much of a chance. And when I say taking too much of a chance, like I'm going all in, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to surf on my buddy's couch and eat ramen packets and just get by. Especially when you're starting out as an amateur, make sure you have a job so you can take care of yourself, buy yourself supplements, nutrients, hopefully have some sort of insurance in case you get dinged up in the gym. And then the other thing would be just the sparring. That's the biggest thing, especially when you're an amateur and you're just starting to figure it out. Don't go in there thinking you're Ali and trying to, box and spar with the best guys in the gym. Really go with the guys at your level when it comes to sparring, and don't do too much of it. Build yourself up to the point where you can hang with the better guys in the gym. That's one mistake I made too early. I took a lot of beatings early on as an amateur that were really unnecessary because I got drawn into going with the guys I was just way in over my head and probably took too many unnecessary shots to the head. Fortunately, you can't see the results of those to this day because I'm about as sharp as a dagger. So, that would be work a full-time job on your way up and just make sure to be responsible with your sparring.
And I would also, along those lines, since we were on a show, we were talking a little bit about weight cutting and all that kind of stuff too. Really push the cardio, guys. Don't be lazy when it's time to do the work and the strength and conditioning. And don't say, oh, I don't have money to go join some gym with weights and all that. You can do 1 million push-ups a day. Get yourself a freaking chin-up bar. Get a good pair of running shoes and hit the freaking road or buy a bike and push that stuff. Push your cardiovascular system. Make sure you're in shape. If you're matched up with somebody that's just as good as you and you're in better shape, the chances of you winning are improved. Bust your ass and work on your cardio from day one so that as your skills improve, you're also becoming a better athlete along with it. Treat it not only as just a combat sport, but a sport, and become a better athlete and toughen yourself up. And that kind of work will make you stronger. Trust me. So hit the road and get a job.
You put all three of those together, you're in good shape. You're
going to be in good shape. If only me and Michael had done that.
Yeah,
if only me and Michael had done that. Okay, this is to all of us, maybe just to you, Mike. I'm not sure. As a fellow resident, to Michael, as a fellow resident of Spokane, and with my baby being born soon, congratulations. What age should I get her into martial arts? Is a good question. And what's the best gym in Spokane? Michael, take it away.
Man, for martial arts, I think that, I think traditional martial arts is more, it's easier for children at a younger age. I feel like you can get them into a traditional martial arts program at a much younger age than you could maybe the others. But, obviously we have a good MMA team at Sick Jitsu, but my jiu-jitsu coach, James Weed, is at Newborn Cascow Jiu-Jitsu. He's a phenomenal coach. I'm not sure what age he brings children in, but I know he just built a new gym. I know they're taking new signups. And, I think around 5 or 6, I think is a good age. And the beauty, and Paul, you know how traditional martial arts is. It's such a good way to help kids develop character, and it teaches a lot about respect and just good qualities going forward. I always say that traditional martial arts is a way to go. And if I was to give somebody the instruction where to go, I would say go to Newborn Cascow to learn from one of the best jiu-jitsu coaches I've ever worked with in my entire career, Mr. James Weed.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that especially really early on, that you just want them learning fundamentals of how to be physical, how to move around, how to roll, how to fall, and how to have fun, right?
And self-defense. Self-defense is a big thing nowadays.
And it's simple stuff, guys. Like, you've got to remember that your kid is not going to become, unless they're a prodigy, and you'll already know that probably, but you just want to teach them how to, if something scary happens and they know how to handle themselves, whether even that be what to yell, how to approach, how to just poke or hit and get away or break a grip. The simpler, the better. And traditional martial arts is going to teach them how to listen, how to stay focused, how to use respect, and how to know when they're in danger and how to know when they're amongst friends and family and things like that. So we got some fun ones coming up. Good question though. But now we're going to get into the good bread and butter of it.
No pun intended.
Sandwich questions, guys. Here, do you guys put the peanut butter or the jelly on the bread first? Good question. And there's only one answer. It's the peanut butter.
Yeah, there's no other. It's just, you got to put the peanut butter on first.
Base.
It's just like, I think it's just the way that the sandwich is named, a peanut butter and jelly. I think you just think like, it's just instinctive to go for the peanut butter first.
However, if it's a ham and cheese, sometimes I put the cheese on first, Michael. So that doesn't always live up to
cheese first. I'm meat.
Cheese down.
I go meat first,
then meat on top.
Wait, I put the meat first because I like to see if I got.
Probably do both sides. Yeah, you're probably right.
I like to see. I put the meat down. I like to see if I got to do 2 whole slices.
Right. I might have cheese on top.
Dice it up a little bit, but yeah, I definitely. There's no other way to do it. Peanut butter first.
Peanut butter first. And I'm a little weird. And Christine was actually just making Ashling this morning a peanut butter and jelly. And she did peanut butter and then jelly. See, I live on the edge. I go peanut butter and I just slather the jelly right on top of that freaking peanut butter. Piece of bread, and I'm on the road.
Especially with how much jelly. I use a lot of jelly.
I'm a lot of jelly guy.
If I do it both sides, I try to flop it over. It just goes everywhere. So I just put jelly on top of the peanut butter.
Yeah, I'm a big jelly guy, and I'm not team grape jelly. I'm team strawberry. I'm team anything else other than grape jelly.
If you come up to the Northwest, Paul, actually, I should bring you a jar huckleberry jelly. I don't think you've had huckleberry jelly. A lot of people don't know huckleberries even exist. It's a Pacific Northwest specialty. I'll have to bring you some huckleberry jam.
Please bring me. Anyway, moving on. Next sandwich question. And would you have any soup with them sandwiches?
Ooh, it really depends on the sandwich. If I'm obviously, if it's a grilled cheese, tomato soup, you dip in the soup. That's always good. I like there's a place
a little sour cream right on top mixed in, maybe.
Nice little mix.
Cheese on top.
I like if I'm doing like a sandwich with like lunch meat. Sometimes I like a broccoli cheddar, and I'll me being the glutton that I am, I'll dip this. If it's like a turkey and cheese, I'll dip it in the broccoli cheddar. Oh,
maybe a turkey and
go to
cheese with
Quiznos.
like a cranberry on it, like a seasonal turkey and cheese there.
I like turkey sandwiches with chicken noodle soup too. I like chicken noodle soup with turkey sandwich. I think that's a good.
So yes, to this man's question, yeah, we'll have a little soup with them.
Yeah,
we'll have a little soup with them sandwiches.
Oh yeah.
Guys, with 2 sandwich questions, that's it. That's the end of our show. I feel good. I feel like we got to clarify a little bit of some of my comments on the situation at 274. Yeah. We don't have a champion. That's really the sad part of the whole situation. But the good thing is Charles Oliveira is an absolute freaking savage and a scary individual to face.
Yeah.
We got some awesome light heavyweights this weekend, Michael. Tune in this Saturday, guys.
And the next time you see me, I'm going to have one of these on my finger, baby. Married. Wedding time. Let's go.
Everybody, send your congratulations to Michael Chiesa and keep them questions coming. And me and Michael will do some more posts like we did on Twitter. We'll ask you guys, please send us hashtag UFC Roundup questions, and don't exclude sandwich questions.
Keep the sandwich questions in. Keep the questions flowing. Remember to use hashtag UFC Roundup.